I got cystic fibrosis. See, I've got cystic fibrosis.
Hey guys, it's Miranda, and this week on Staying Salty, we're going to be talking about missing school with CF. And so this is a really interesting topic for me to discuss because after 5th grade, I was homeschooled partially due to how much school I actually did miss. On an average year, I would miss close to 60, 70-ish days of school. Sometimes more, very rarely less. So I have a timeline kind of drawn out down here, so if I'm looking down, that's what I'm looking at. I first started school whenever I was 2 in preschool, but I don't technically remember going in the hospital then, so I'm not going to talk about that. The first admission that I remember is in kindergarten, and that's kind of whenever my regular tune-ups 2 to 3 times a year started. Because of how much school that I missed in kindergarten alone, they were already threatening to fail me. So what they ended up doing was putting me in special ed to classify me as disabled, which in their minds made it acceptable for me to miss as much school as I was missing because I was in the hospital. This was supposed to make it easier for me to get schoolwork sent home, which still didn't happen. And it was supposed to make it easier because there was a smaller class and there would be people there to work with me to help catch me up. Which, it was a smaller class and there were people there to help me, but they didn't whenever I would come back. I would come back to school and I would immediately get bombarded with the 3 to 4 weeks of tests that I would miss out on without ever having any of the schoolwork to make up for it. The first time that I really remember this impacting me was 1st grade. It was the first time we did anything reading comprehension wise. They didn't tell me how to do any of it. They just gave me this big stack of papers and sent me out into a desk in the hall and told me to do it all, which is how I got my first F, which my little nerd heart broke so hard over, and I'm still not over it. But yeah, so after that, I kind of made it my mission to not be so far behind. So I would find myself going a couple of chapters ahead of time at home. I would take all my books home or even in class because I would work so far ahead and so much faster than everyone else because I was in a special ed class. I would get a good 6 weeks ahead of everybody, but then I had nothing to do. So what I would do was I would tutor the other kids in my class. There were a few kids with autism and things of that nature. So I would spend my schooling teaching them, which really helped build my own character and help shape me into the person I am today, which I'm totally grateful for. But I wasn't getting my own schooling in school. I was schooling myself. One of the last admissions that I had in public school was in 4th grade, which was my last year in public school. And I got to come home from the hospital on my birthday. And so the fact that I was able to go back to school on my birthday from the hospital that I had been in for, I think it was 3 weeks that I was admitted. But I got to go and I was so excited. It was like the best birthday present ever. And there was a kid there that was newer and didn't know that I was sick. And so I was sitting there at lunch telling all of my friends about all the stuff that had gone on in the hospital. And this kid was like, wait, you're sick? Like something's wrong with you? So my friends and I were trying to explain to him, like, yes, I have cystic fibrosis, yada, 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 all of this stuff. And he got like really weird about it. He grabbed his fork and jumped across the table and said that he needed my eyeball for an experiment because, well, I was a sick freak and he had to do tests on me. So downside of missing school and coming back to that was a big thing. And so once the teachers ended up pulling him off of me and my eyeballs are still in my head. After all of that happened, we were kind of looking into maybe it would be a better idea if I went to a smaller school so that, as much as the teachers did try to help me, I was too ahead of my class but couldn't be put in GT classes because of how much I missed school. And I wasn't getting anything from it anymore. So we thought about putting me in a private school. The big bonus that we were told about the private school would be that the teachers would send me home with vacation family packets that they would have for other kids if their families would go on vacation or something like that. So I would still get all the schoolwork that I needed, but it wouldn't be that much of a hassle. So great, total selling point, switched over for 5th grade. And in the beginning, it was wonderful. I absolutely loved it. But then I was admitted, and it was the same hassle. They wouldn't give me my schoolwork. I was too far behind once I got back. I never had a problem when it came to teaching myself, except for when it came to math. And I always found myself missing school in the times of the year where they would teach something new or difficult. And that would just put me really far behind. I would come back, they would never explain it to me, and then they would move on to the next thing. So division for me became something almost impossible to do because I was never taught it right. My mom would try to explain it to me, but we just would always fight about it because I just couldn't understand it, and it was always frustrating. So math to this day is still not one of my strong suits, but luckily I kind of excel in the other ones to make up for it. So I was very blessed with that. The different thing about the private school though, they weren't giving me the schoolwork, but they also weren't expecting me to make it up in any way, shape, or form. So not only was I missing out on the schoolwork, but I was also missing out on the test, and I just wasn't getting any schooling whatsoever. So all the kids got super jealous, and they were like, why doesn't the sick girl, get to do any of this? We're forced to do it. That's just not fair. So that on top of other things that were going on, there was a lot of bullying, and it got really intense and really brutal, and I had stopped doing my treatments and stuff, which led to me being sicker even more, and it was just a very vicious cycle. So I ended up being pulled out of school. It was my decision, but I ended up leaving school at the end of 5th grade after the school year was over and decided I was going to do homeschooling, which wasn't that big of a stretch because if you look back on my entire schooling career, for the most part, at the end of the day, I was the one that was teaching myself. So I did homeschooling, which was absolutely wonderful for me. I excelled at it. This gave me the freedom to really dive into the subjects that I really excelled at and really felt passionate about. And it gave me the freedom to go as far ahead as I needed or wanted to. Or if I needed to take a step back because I wasn't feeling well, I wasn't pressured to push myself to do it. So it really was the perfect balance for me. I never missed out on anything with school. I still went to all the school dances and all of the extracurricular things like the sporting events and whatnot. And then I had my own homeschooling dances and my own homeschool events. So I kind of had the best of both worlds because I still got to keep all my school friends, but I also had my homeschool friends, and I had all of these experiences combined. I ended up graduating 2.5 years early. So college became kind of just a thought in the back of my head really young. I had several ideas of what I wanted to do for college and several different places I wanted to go. I wanted to go to Juilliard, and I wanted to go to Loyola. I wanted to go to a fashion school in London that I got accepted to. I got accepted into FITM, which I really wanted to go to, and I got accepted and actually went to go and tour the Art Institute in Houston. Each time I would sign up for a school or look into it or go to it, I got sick. And so it just, especially the Art Institute was the last one that I went and toured, and I was around the people in the environment for literally 24 hours, and on the way home I was coughing up blood, and I was put in the hospital, and it wasn't worth it. So we decided that traditional school for me just wasn't in the cards. So after I decided that I wasn't going to do the Art Institute, it came down to me really having to try to figure out my health. So instead of the fashion degree that I was supposed to get, I ended up getting a degree in nutrition, which I decided to do just to try to better my health overall, thinking that maybe if I can get my health in order, eventually I'll be able to have some kind of normal life. And I did the online school. It was absolutely amazing, completely turned my health around. Online college to me was literally nothing. It was the same thing as online everything else that I did, or at home everything else that I did for my entire schooling career. At the end of the day, I'm incredibly grateful for how I chose to do my schooling. And I couldn't imagine being in school and not being as sick as I was. I couldn't imagine any other way that I did. I mean, I got to have the public school experience, the private school experience, the homeschool experience. I kind of had a little taste of everything in my life, which I'm really grateful for, because I got really multicultural that way when it came to my schooling. I got to figure out what I liked, what I didn't, what worked for me. So yeah, that's what it was like with me missing school. I kind of just, decided I was gonna miss all of school and do it myself, I guess is what you could say that. I hope you guys got something out of that. Leave your story down below about your schooling experience. You know, what did you miss a lot of school because of your health? What did you do to try to cope with that? Were you left out a lot? Were you pushed back in school? Were you able to keep up? Did you excel past what you thought you could? Let me know. Let us all know in the comments down below. Remember to like this video if you did, dislike it if you didn't, share it with your friends, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and on Twitter. I will leave all of those accounts down below, as well as my own personal accounts, and I can't wait to see you guys next week.